We are at a vaccination center in New Delhi as people line up to get a COVID-19 jab as India faces its worst crisis in its modern history, with thousands of people dying from the coronavirus every day. Many hospitals in the country are operating beyond their capacity, sometimes patients sharing beds or lying on corridor floors. Most hospitals are having to turn patients away because of a critical shortage of beds, oxygen, equipment, and medicines. And even when people are able to find hospital beds, patients have died around the country after the hospital ran out of oxygen supply. Funeral pyres are being built in parks, car parks, and open spaces as crematoriums can't keep up with the number of bodies being brought every day. And worryingly, the virus is spreading to rural areas where 65% of Indians live, but where the public health infrastructure is even worse than in the cities. In India's poorest state, Bihar, there is only one doctor for every 28,000 people, and patients are dying there as life-saving equipment such as ventilators lie unused because of a shortage of doctors who have the expertise to use them. The government is once again, as they did last year, converting sports stadiums, wedding and banquet halls into makeshift COVID-19 care centers. The Indian Air Force and Navy are bringing oxygen and other medical supplies from overseas. The Indian Army is setting up hundreds of oxygen generation plants in hospitals using technology based on its fighter jets. International aid is continuing to pour into India from at least 40 countries, including the United States, which is sending $100 million worth of aid. The US is also sending the raw materials needed for India to manufacture its own COVID-19 vaccines, and that is because India's vaccination drive is not going well, despite India being the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines, making 60% of all the vaccines in the world. It doesn't have enough doses for its own people. The government exported 65 million vaccines earlier this year before realizing that it was facing a shortage at home. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is facing criticism for declaring that India had defeated the coronavirus pandemic and not preparing for a second wave. A parliamentary committee on health warned the government in November that it had a shortage of oxygen and what it described as a grossly inadequate supply of hospital beds. The government's own scientists warned officials in March of a new and more contagious variant of the virus, but despite that, the government allowed large religious and political gatherings to go ahead, including regional elections